Welcome to Tapped In with Tony. Tonight's guest is going to be a former sportscaster, play-by-play guy, and a current blogger, Jay Wilhelm. Jay, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. You hopped on Twitter and found me and invited me on. So I'm excited.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk to you, man. Well, first, let's start off. What's your background? Where are you from originally?
So I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio, um, and a lot of people that pay attention to the sports world in Ohio and maybe even a little bit beyond. I went to Canton-McKinley High School, so um, we sit right next door to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium was my high school's home stadium, and it was Fawcett back then. Graduated in 2001. Then played college baseball at Otterbein College down in Westerville, Ohio, for 2 years. After I left Otterbein, went to a couple of like tryouts, things like that, and caught on and bounced around independent league baseball for about 4 or 5 years. Ended up in Nashville in 2008. And then at the end of '08 was the end of my playing career. I moved home back to Canton, where I kind of started the family. And, I've worked different jobs like my normal 9 to 5s. And then up until this is the first year that I didn't, but I used to call football and basketball games for a local radio station. Mostly high school football in Stark County. They got McKinley Bulldogs and the Massillon Tigers and some of the other big names that a lot of people in Northeast Ohio have heard of. And then basketball. This is the first year off of not doing it. The only reason is just because I wanted more time with the family, because the schedule was I'd go to my regular 9 to 5 job, and then on the days that I had games, I'd go straight to the stadium, sometimes not get home till 11:30 at night. And then people think that these commentators, even at the high school level, just kind of go to the stadiums and call games. It's not the case. Sometimes you got to go to the practices and find out what they're running, who's injured, what kind of schemes, just talk to the coaches and see what's going on. Because when you get on the air, believe it or not, there's dead time you got to fill. And if you don't do your homework, you're just going to look unprepared, and the product as a whole to the listeners, it just isn't good. So it was just taking up a lot of time, on top of my family time. And I just kind of wanted to go back to family. And I've just been trying different projects because my passion's clearly sports. I've been in it my whole life, starting when I was 4 years old. So I started doing the blogging thing. I've done a couple of podcasts, a couple of YouTube things. Nothing's really kind of caught my fire until the project I just currently started now, which is Jaybird Talks. Just comes off of a nickname I had when I was little. They called me Jaybird. And I'm always talking about sports and life and things like that with people at a grocery store in line or people at work, doesn't matter. So that's kind of where the name came from.
Nice, nice. And having been a Canton McKinley, you guys have that huge rivalry with Massillon. How is
Yep.
that experience growing up with the Canton McKinley and Massillon rival?
So the funny thing is everybody on my father's side of the family graduated from Massillon High School. Even
Wow.
my sister. So I had a sister. She's older than me. She graduated from Massillon High School. I am the lone in my family that went to McKinley and played sports at McKinley. And it was very early on when I was in the Canton City school system. And, I had aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff like that were from Massillon. I found very early that during that week, houses divide very quickly, and you learn, being the only one on one side of the rivalry. I learned very thick skin very early on,
Yeah, yeah.
because they don't hold back. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, you have to, especially
Yep.
with rivals like that. It's like
Sure.
Hatfield and McCoy, St. Ed,
Absolutely.
St. Ignatius. I went to Shaker, so our biggest
Okay.
we had three different rivals. We had US for hockey,
Hmm.
Menor for football and baseball, Cleveland Heights. So we had our share of rivals, but I don't think it was ever super intense like Massillon McKinley.
Yeah, Massillon-McKinley. I don't know if people know this. I mean, I don't know if this is still the case with everything with sports betting, but for many years, the Massillon-McKinley football game was the only high school sporting event in the world that you could bet on in Vegas.
Wow.
It was broadcast in, I think, over 100 countries. And it was
Wow.
it was crazy to walk through the parking lots at the different stadiums, because we alternated sites each year. And it was crazy looking at the license plates. And you'd think it would just be Ohio plates. I've seen Texas, California, Louisiana, Florida, and people have made trips from all over the world to just see this game. And it was really cool. And I got to be there from 98 to 01. So I was a freshman and a sophomore when they won the back-to-back state titles in football, and in 97 when they were the USA Today national champions for the entire country, with the team, as a lot of people, if they followed, Ohio State football. I was in school with Mike Doss, Jamar Martin, Kenny Peterson, Tyler Everett, and across town at the same time was guys like Brian Hartline. He went to Glen Oak, who's now the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. They were in school with me at the exact same time. So I got to see this town's cream of the crop. As we know, Doss went on to be a 3-time All-American, stayed for his senior year at Ohio State to win the national championship against the Miami Hurricanes, and then went to play and win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and the Colts. So that's been pretty cool to watch him all the way from childhood all the way up.
Wow. And that's amazing. And
Yeah.
My good friend and pal that I work with, Vince McKee of Keon Sports Talk, covers the Massillon-McKinley rivalry in Northeast Ohio high school football rivalries.
Yeah. It's Massillon right now is, I hate to say it, but I got to give them credit when credit is due. They have a churning machine over there right now. They haven't been able to get over the hump of winning the big one yet. As you know, they have like 23 state titles, but all of those are before the playoff system. They haven't won one since the playoff got put in the early 80s. And they're right on the cusp of doing it. And it's just Nate Moore and his staff over there do a phenomenal job, and they just keep churning out like talent and just talented teams that they've gone toe to toe with Hoban a few times and just haven't been able to get over that hump. And I think it's just because Hoban's championship experience plays out in the third and fourth quarters of those games.
Absolutely. And Hoban, at the start of the last decade, you wouldn't have thought that Hoban would be one of the top football programs in the state, but only a
No.
few short years after an 0-10 mark at one point, they're one of the top football programs in the state, and they're basically turning out talent left and right. They even beat Massillon in the 2020 state championship at Massillon.
Yeah. They kind of came on out of nowhere. To me, it was kind of like, we all know Ted Ginn Sr. in Cleveland Glenville High School and what he's built up there. And to show you how far that program has come and how quickly a program can change. When I was in high school, we played Cleveland Glenville and beat them 70-0 one time.
Wow.
And then you get a guy like Ted Ginn Sr. that just starts doing his process, and kids buy in and the parents buy in, and you can see it. And the same thing happened at Hoban. And they bring kids in and they change the whole culture into winning. And Cleveland Glenville's done it. Hoban's done it. Massillon's doing it now. And it's if Nate Moore sticks around, I think it'll only be a matter of time before he brings a title home to Massillon.
I think so too. Massillon's they beat St. Ed's last year, the eventual D1 state champions, beating McKinley several years in a row.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's almost like the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. It's just been Ohio State over and over again. Well, now here's Michigan, and it kind of feels that way. Massillon's just kind of running through McKinley right now. I think McKinley has the right guys in the seat now. They got McKinley guys. Antonio Hall, who I went to school with. I played baseball with him, and I played Mighty Mite Little League baseball together. He's now the coach there. If you've heard that name, he was an offensive lineman for the University of Kentucky. Still the highest rated recruit Kentucky's ever landed. He was a 5-star O-lineman coming out of McKinley. So he understands the winning culture that it takes to win there at McKinley. And the hardest thing to do in a city school, and you probably know this from being up in the Cleveland area, is you got to get the parents in the town to buy in. That's what Massillon has. That's what Hoban has. That's what Cleveland Glenville and Ted Ginn Sr. got. He got the parents to buy in, because when the parents buy in, the kids buy in, and then everything just turns into a nice little machine. And I think you give Antonio Hall a couple of years, and that's what you're going to see at McKinley too, because he understands it.
Gotcha. And I'd also say that on the smaller level too, with Elyria Catholic up here, Troy Smith, former Ohio
Yeah,
State Glenville product. He's the head coach over there. They're
yeah,
give them a few
yeah.
years and they'll be up a top.
Sometimes schools, what they'll do, and McKinley did this, is they try to bring in guys from outside because they have the resume. There's been guys that have been really good. Coach Reardon was a great coach for McKinley. Helped the GPA and the school go up for the team. He was a really good coach. He just couldn't get over that hump. And I think there's certain that require that guy, like a McKinley guy, a Buckeye guy. Like Buckeye struggled till they brought in Tressel, who was an Ohio guy, and then they brought in Urban Meyer, and they went to the stratosphere with that guy. He started out as an assistant, at Ohio State. He understood, and I think there's certain brands. Michigan's the same way with Jim Harbaugh, that you need a Michigan guy, you need a Buckeye guy, you need a McKinley guy, and I think there's certain brands that need that guy because they understand the past success, they understand the community, and what it takes to win there. And I think Troy Smith will probably do the same thing up there.
I agree. And I noticed you said you also played independent baseball for a few years.
Yeah,
Did you ever get any tryouts for any of the pro teams at all?
I got invitation to tryouts, but it wasn't like a singular come here, we want to see you. It was picked a bunch of guys and we all went down, and it was for the Brewers. And they basically had a bunch of us. It was kind of like, if you've ever seen The Rookie.
I have not. I've seen Major League though.
Okay, so yeah, that's a great movie. So The Rookie's a Disney movie with Dennis Quaid. It's based off of a true story. Watch it if you get a chance. Really good. He goes to a major league tryout, but it's open to a bunch of people. And we kind of got the letter to, hey, we're going to be in this place at this time. We think you'd, serve yourself well by putting yourself in front of these guys. But it was just a lot of most people. If anybody remembers, like the Canton Crocodiles, after the Canton Akron Indians moved to Akron and became the Akron Arrows, they were affiliated with, they still are, with the the Cleveland Guardians. And then there was a team that moved in down here in Canton called the Canton Crocodiles. They weren't really affiliated with anybody. They were kind of like the Frontier League type. They don't have an affiliate to a major league team like some of the ones that you're used to, like the Toledo Mud Hens or the Akron Rubber Ducks or something like that. But they're like the next step down. So you hope to be seen one of those teams at the single A or double A level catch you. And I bounced around the Midwest for about 4 or 5 years, and then I think I hit like 27 years old, and you realize when you're one of the older guys on the team at that level, they're just going to start passing you up. And when they start leapfrogging you, you ain't going nowhere. And it was just at that time, you're like, okay, do I want to do this and make $12,000 a year, $23,000 a year my whole life, or do I want to start a family and figure out what I want to do as a career? And that's kind of really what it came down to.
It takes a lot of grind. Not everybody can be a Drew Maggi and be 33 years. Make their debut a few days ago.
Yeah, now it was, don't get me wrong, it was super fun. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's given me experiences. I got to see the country when most people wouldn't get to on somebody else's dime. And I made friends that I'll, forever get to talk sports with, because some of those bus rides, they're long.
Oh yeah, I bet. And I know before the MLB and minor league baseball got the stipends increased, I know that a lot of minor league players weren't really making a lot. And
Nope.
take
Some
a
of them
second
make
job.
like $6,000. What's that?
Some of them had to take a second job
Yeah,
just
I
to
did.
make ends meet.
Yep, 100%. But it's all about chasing the dream.
Absolutely. And
Yeah, a lot of the guys I went to school with in high school, when I finally got out at 27, they're 10 years, 5 to 10 years into their careers, like the ones that they're going to stick with till retirement. And here I am, I got to stay in the sport longer than they did, and I got to see more things than they did, and I got to make a little change off of it, unlike them. Um, when it came to the end result, they were 7 years ahead of me, 5 years ahead of me in their careers, starting families, and here I am in my late 20s, and I'm just getting started. Like, what do I want to do outside?
Gotcha, gotcha. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, when you did finally hang up the cleats, what did you? How did you get involved in sports broadcasting and play-by-play?
So I used to sell marketing and advertising for a local radio station, not the one I called games for. And I knew I eventually wanted to try to get behind the mic. Um, so after I left that company, I had enough experience now, and I went to school for sports journalism. So let's say that the 2 years I did spend in college, one of my majors was sports journalism. So I knew that's what I wanted to do in some facet. Um, when I left that radio station and got another job, then I started reaching out to one across town that was looking for people to call games because they were expanding their sports department and it was really on a part-time basis. And I'm like, okay, here's a chance. I'm getting in on the ground floor. They only have one sports team that does games, and they wanted to get up to like 6 or 7. So I threw my name in the hat and kind of gave them my experience in sports. And they actually hired me as a color analyst for football because after talking to me and through my interviews, they said, you look at the game a little different. And I said, yeah, I don't really have a favorite team when it comes other than the Ohio State Buckeyes in college, but in the NFL at the time, I'm like, yeah, I don't really have a favorite team. I don't care why number 7 runs for 5 yards or that number 7 runs for 5 yards. I want to know why did he get 5 and not 10, or why did he get 5 instead of 2? Where was the middle linebacker? Did the safeties cheat up? I start looking at it and watching it like I'm watching film as a coach, and it's just my mentality of I just want to know how the wheel turns. I just don't care about the score. I want to see the inner workings. I want to see how the sausage is made. So that just became how I watch games. And he goes, that's perfect. That's really what a color analyst does. And he goes, and on the radio, they're actually more important than the play-by-play guy because they explain a little bit more to the other fan. Like you got your most fans that just want to listen to the play-by-play, but then the guys that really know the game, they need the picture painted a little more for them.
Yep.
So they can't watch it on TV. So yeah, and then the guy that was my play-by-play partner, he got another job very quickly out of that. He couldn't do it anymore. So they kind of shifted me into the play-by-play seat. And I go, man, I've never done this before. They said, you didn't do color analyst before either, but you did it. You did it well. And I said, yeah, but that's how I watched games. And he goes, all you do is just say what you see. Stay 2 seconds behind the action, say what you see. And I said, okay. And then I just started imitating what I've seen my whole life on television or what I've heard my whole life on the radio. As a kid, all the way up, you learn little phrases. You learn how to say something that you learned from Joe Tate back in the day, or Tom Hamilton, or you listen to like Joel Klatt and guys like that, and Gus Johnson, and you just take a little bit of each person, and then you find your little way of doing things. And he never put me back in the color analyst seat again. And I had a couple people call me after I did my first game as a play-by-play, and they said, you get somebody, you think it's going to take them 4 or 5 games, and then you realize that this person was kind of put here for this. And they said, it just became natural, like you've been calling games for 25 years. And I said, I just telling you what I saw. That's all it
Yep.
is. I'm just giving you straight facts of what happened in front of me. And
Yep.
then I turned to love it, and I did it for 3 or 4 years. And like I said, if that would be my only job and I got paid to do it and I didn't have to have another one, 100% I would do that. 100% I would do that. But I wanted more time with the family and not having to split my time between my 9 to 5, my radio job, and then the kids. That's just not fair. I just hit 40 years old, so it was fun. And if somebody ever heard a replay of me and said, yeah, let's hire that guy for good, I wouldn't bat an eye. But I'm not going to go out searching for it because I'm in a pretty good spot right now.
Gotcha, man. And I definitely understand with the play by play because I did a little bit of play by play stuff myself. I know a lot of people know
Yeah.
me as video guy for Keon Sports, taking highlights and stuff. But
Yeah.
before that, I actually did some play-by-play stuff for Tri-C with
Yeah,
my
it's super fun.
partner Jeff Sabo. I actually did do play-by-play for a college football game with John Bazeka for Walsh University a year and a half ago.
Oh, John Bozica.
Yes, John Bazeka.
Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. Him and I worked together at one of the radio stations. And he actually, when I left the radio station I was currently at, he's the one that took my seat. So
Wow.
he's a good dude. He also went to Otterbein College.
Wow.
John Bozica is a really good dude.
Oh yeah, great guy, great guy.
Yeah.
And it was fun getting to do the games. I did a couple solo games for volleyball and soccer at Tri-C. You didn't hear any Andres. I'm blanking on the dude's last name, but the dude who does the goal chants for soccer. Yeah, but you just gotta find your niche with that. And I did a game for the old sports information director at Walsh University. I did men's basketball for that. That was a fun experience, but it was like during like the late stages of COVID when you still had to wear a mask. And,
Yep. Same.
I
Yeah.
I
did. Yeah, I did the. I was still on staff at Q92. COVID thing hit, so a lot of times the radio and newspaper people were the only people allowed in the arenas or in the stadiums for the games. That was even before they allowed the parents to start coming. Because if you remember, it first started with only media could come. They had to wear masks. They were allowed to take it down if they were speaking into their microphone. But no fans were allowed in the football stadiums or the basketball arenas. And then they slowly, as things started to kind of come together with information on it all, they started to allow the parents to show up to games, the media and the parents. So, yeah, I was on staff when all that hit.
Wow. And what would you say is your favorite, or you say your top three favorite, or what's your favorite games that you've called or been a part of without when you're broadcasting? Take as much time as you need.
I think I did. God, that's a tough one. I've done some Jackson basketball games, some Jackson men's games.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Jackson Hoover basketball games when it
Oh,
comes to the basketball side of things. Specifically when Tanner Ware was North Canton Hoover, and he actually now plays Division I baseball in college. Tanner Ware was one of the power forward center for North Canton Hoover. Those games, each time that they would play, they played each other twice. Once at North Canton, once at Jackson. They're both in the Federal League. And if anybody knows Federal League basketball, it's one of the better leagues in the state of Ohio when it comes to basketball. Well, I mean, even in football, but I mean, in basketball, it really is. I mean, you're talking about Hoover, Jackson, who's won a state title with Kyle Young not too long ago. You got McKinley, who went back-to-back in like 06 and 07. You got Canton Glen Oak, which the McCullum brothers are from there, CJ McCullum and Eric McCullum. CJ plays for the New Orleans Pelicans, I think, now. He was Damian Lillard's running partner with the Portland Trailblazers for a while. But those games between Jackson and Hoover, they would go into double, triple overtime, and those things are physical, and they are intense. And it didn't matter where they played. It was rarely a game that didn't come down to a single possession, and those places get packed. And it reminded me of the field house when I was in school, when it would used to pack all the way up. When Keith McLeod played at McKinley, he was a senior when I was a freshman. If you look back, he was Ohio's Mr. Basketball from McKinley, and he used to pack him and Richard Bradley and those guys. They used to pack the field house a good 8,000 strong, and it reminds me of that atmosphere.
Wow!
I would say the Jackson Hoover basketball games have been some of my favorites, just out of the atmosphere alone.
I agree because I've covered my share of Federal League basketball games. Like I did video for Lake Glen Oak, Lake and Jackson when Lake beat them and their fans rushed the court.
Yeah,
I gotta say, like back in the day, like it was packed at all those games, but now you're lucky if you get maybe 50, 60% nowadays, even though the teams
Yeah.
are, even pretty much. Any team
Mhm.
can beat anyone. You're lucky
Yep.
if you get 60% attendance nowadays.
Yeah, you go to a Jackson versus Hoover game. It doesn't matter if it's over here at Jackson, over there at North Canton Hoover. If those teams are playing well, that those places are packed. There's not a seat to find, and it's great.
Gotcha. And you mentioned that you have a blog. When did
Yeah,
you start the blog, and how have you used it to like keep in touch with your sports? With your sports background, because I know you're not at the radio station anymore because you wanted to spend
sure.
time with family.
Yeah. I use it really just because I always have an opinion, and I love saying it. Like most fans, the difference between me and some fans is I have the experience as a player, as a sports worker inside the radio station. So I don't just have the fan vision. I have the knowledge as a player and as someone that has to call the games with with no bias. And so I know I wanted to keep doing something just because you should always have a passion. Even if you stop doing something, you should still kind of try to do it the best circumstance. And I tried a couple of different blogs. I tried to do, some that were just focused on one sport or one team. And I just have too much knowledge and opinion to just do one. So like I said, I took a little play off of my nickname when I was a kid and the fact that I never shut up when I talk. And I created jaybirdtalks.com, which is a sports blog. Sometimes I'll throw in, a quick blog about life, about business, relationships, kids, just other things that I have experience in. Um, but its main course is sports. And I've probably posted 20, 22, 23 straight days on there, just to get it jump started. I just finally got the domain for it, and eventually something like this is going to happen where it's going to be a channel, like a YouTube channel, where I'll have guests like yourself on, and we'll just shoot the breeze about sports or something that's coming up, or we'll find a specific topic and kind of run with it. That's coming up too, but I also want it to be at my own speed, because I don't want to pour myself into something and take away from that family time that I left the radio station for, because then what was the point? I just kind of want it to be a passion project, get a little advertising dollars on the side, from some local businesses when it gets to that point, but just kind of do it when I feel like it, just so I can keep that fire of loving sports going. And like I said, my original goal in life was to write for Sports Illustrated, which is why that's why I pursued sports journalism. So the writing part comes a lot easier to me. Sometimes I can rip off, I don't know, 4 or 5 sports articles in an hour. But yeah, that's really what it is. It's like I said, it's Jaybird Talks, JaybirdTalks.com. And it's just a little bit of anything on there. I think at one point in time, I wrote an article about the LeBron Jordan argument, and kind of cited that the fact that we're still having the argument is the argument.
Yes.
You're never going to find anybody that's going to go yes, or everybody's going to always have their opinion, and you're never going to change one. If one thinks it's Jordan, the other one thinks it's LeBron. But the thing, to me, the way I look at it and the way I see it, is us having the argument for this long is a testament to who LeBron is. The fact that we're still having the argument. Kobe only lasted so long in that argument. Finally, everybody was like, oh, he does everything Jordan does. He just doesn't do it as well. He had one less ring. He's got, you know what I mean? Like he did everything. He was like Jordan light. He was like Jordan light. You know what I mean? So he fell out of that argument real quick. Whereas now LeBron's got his own aisle of arguments. Now he's the all-time leading scorer. He's going to probably finish top 10 or top 5 in almost every single statistical category that the NBA tracks. And that's wild, because there's not another human that's ever put on a jersey that's been that close to being top 10 in every single category, both offensively and defensively. It doesn't happen. So that's his side of his argument, right? But to me, the article was basically saying, you guys can argue whoever you think is the greatest of all time, But the fact that he is staying in the argument, his argument, him being in the argument is his argument. Like the fact that
Absolutely.
you're keeping my name there. So it's just stuff like that. Just mostly 99.99% of it is opinion pieces. I've done my fair share where you cover the games and you just write about what happened, and it just ends with just a bunch of stats at the bottom. That doesn't really, yeah, I've done those. I did that. I wrote for the college school paper. I wrote for Fansided before. Fansided.com is a bunch of fan sites. I wrote for the Ohio State one, scarletandgame.com. Busting Brackets is their college basketball version. And, a lot of that is you can write your opinion, but sometimes they want you to just kind of cover the game, just kind of say what happens. So with this blog, I get to just purely blast my opinion. And sometimes it's going to make some people mad, but we all know who are the most listened to people in the world: Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, and Colin Cowherd. Because what do? They tick everybody off.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I agree with you with LeBron. There will not be, I will say this, and I stand on it, there won't be another player that even remotely matches what LeBron does and what he will continue to do.
Or off the court.
That too.
And I've gotten to see both. I was born in 82. Jordan came along in 88. I'm old enough to remember his entire career. And there's one thing to me that kind of puts Jordan above him, because I think of the totality of all of it, is that Magic and Bird saved the NBA. If it wasn't for those two, they were going bankrupt. They were going to go bankrupt, and it was going to go away. Jordan globalized the NBA. Like, we never really heard of guys coming over from overseas. But Dream Team 92, Jordan's big billboard in Barcelona, Jordan globalized the game of basketball. And I think off the court, he's done more for the game as far as saving it. I think that's the small thing that puts him kind of above for me. And it's not, to me, they're 1 and 1A, and you can make the argument both ways. I don't think anybody's going to get the hype that they got as early as LeBron did in high school, in the social media era, live up to the hype, and then rebuild his own city.
Wow. Yeah. And on the top of that, Jordan is a NASCAR owner too.
Yeah. And I don't think Chicago Bulls Jordan survived social media era.
Oh yeah. Because when you had
he used to make up stories about players just to find a fire. Like, if he was bored, he would, in his mind, make up a story that a player talked trash to him just to get that fight. So imagine if there was social media where the whole world could tell when he cheated on his wife for 8 years before anybody found out, his gambling problems and all that. Imagine if there was social media and cameras everywhere. I don't think that he survives the way LeBron does, whereas you've never heard anything bad. It was one thing. It was like when he had that Hummer truck in high school, there was a question as to how he got it at that age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is he getting money underneath the table and stuff like that? That's really the only thing you've ever heard about the man. Same wife, kids. If you follow him on Instagram, he's always posting with his kids. I've seen 2 pictures in 20 years of Michael Jordan with his kids.
Wow.
Like, there's just an element to what I think of LeBron outside of the game than what I think of Jordan.
Wow.
He's not great. Like, he's my favorite of all time, but if we're talking about the humanity of things, I mean, you got the I Promise School in Akron. He just redid the Tangier and turned it into a destination spot. He's even across from my office in Akron. They're building housing for people in Akron, a whole apartment complex. He's fronting for that.
Yeah.
So I just don't think, you're right. We're never going to see another him again, but we're also never going to see another Jordan. Kobe tried, but yeah, I think when you talk about the totality of the game, where he played the game right, not Jordan and Kobe played the game right for them.
Yes.
I think LeBron plays the game right when Dr. Naismith wrote the rules out and wrote what he thought the point guard should do. And if you have an open shot, or if you're covered, instead of forcing a shot, you kick it to the corner. He makes the right basketball play every single time. And that's the thing most of his haters dislike about him.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't take He doesn't take over a game. Well, no, he makes the right basketball play. So if
Yeah.
we flip this around and you have a son and you ask him, hey, what do you want your kid to do in life? Or, well, I want him to make the right move in life. Okay, well, that's what LeBron's doing, but on the basketball court. He's making the right move that his dad and his parents would want him to make in life. And I think that's a ridiculous thing to say, considering what they just come out the other day saying that if you count how many shots he's made in the last 3 seconds of a playoff game, you can combine everybody on a list and he still has more than they do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think we're going to see another him. That's for sure.
I've just got 2 more questions for you before we wrap up.
Sure.
Number 1, who are the first 3 picks in tonight's draft?
Oh,
I heard there was a trade, actually. I believe Tennessee traded up to get the 3rd pick, so I believe the draft order is Carolina, Houston, and Tennessee.
Carolina, Houston, Tennessee. So, if I'm Carolina, I'm taking CJ Stroud. I think Carolina is going to be goaded into taking Bryce Young. So you said Carolina. I'm going to go Carolina, Bryce Young. Texans are probably going to take CJ. And then the Titans only moved up because they want quarterback. So they're probably going to either take Levis or Anthony Richardson. And I just recently, decided to become a Colts fan just because I haven't been a favorite. I haven't had a favorite NFL team in years. And all my buddies around here hate arguing NFL with me because they're like, you're cheating. You come in with an unbiased opinion and nothing makes you mad or too happy because you don't have a team. And I said, okay, I feel left out of fandom. And I was going to take the Buffalo Bills, and then they gave me crap for that, saying, oh, you're just going to jump on one of the good teams in the bandwagon. I said, oh, I got you. I got one better. I'm going to go, and I'm going to take the Colts. One, they're somewhat close to us here in Ohio. Mike Doss played for them when they won the Super Bowl way back in the day. So there's a little tie there for me. I actually have his Colts jersey from back then. So I took the Colts. So I need them to get a quarterback because they don't have one.
Yeah.
And I would be okay. I would be okay with any of them except Will Levis. I think it takes more than just being a rocket arm in the NFL these days. And I haven't seen enough of him between the ears to feel good about him starting very quickly. I think CJ, and this might be a little bit of the Buckeye bias to me. I think he's a little more ready now. I think him and Bryce are very like 1 and 1A, again, using that reference. Anthony Richardson might have the highest ceiling if he could figure out his accuracy because he is an absolute athletic freak.
Yeah. Because
so I would probably go Bryce, CJ, probably Levis. You just Levis and Richardson in the 3rd slot. That's my guess. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it. I just know if the Titans are moving up, Tannehill's not their answer, or whoever they have now. He's clearly not their answer. I think they're moving up for quarterback.
They have to be, because I know they drafted one last year, and I guess they're giving up on the Malik Willis experiment after a year.
Yeah, that's a tough. Yeah, I hate giving up on a kid after a year. That's tough. There's some guys that don't. The game doesn't slow down for them until year 4 or 5, and then you got to also think, like, if I'm a quarterback and I'm coming out of college and into the draft, I got to be honest. I would only want to go to a team that has an offensive-minded head coach, a head coach that's been an offensive coordinator. You got some of these guys like the Jets. The Jets are okay when they got Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is like a coach on the field. He's got the experience. He's been a champion. And their coach, he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. So you wouldn't want to go get a Zach Wilson when you have a defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah.
Because you know where the defensive-minded head coach is going to lean. All of his experiences on the defensive side of the ball. He doesn't know how to develop a rookie quarterback. So those are the guys. If I'm those guys with a defensive head coach, a defensive-minded head coach, I go and get a veteran like they did with Aaron Rodgers. If I'm a rookie quarterback coming in for the first time, I want to go to a team that has an offensive-minded head coach, a head coach like Sean Payton, guys like that know how to develop quarterbacks and have their systems built on the offensive side of the ball so you can help in that development.
Yep, that definitely helps out. And Jay, before we wrap up, if you have anything you want to plug or any advice, the floor is yours.
No, man, just keep grinding. It seems like you got a lot of experience under your belt. I enjoyed this. This was a cool thing. Usually when I do these, it's a specific topic that they want to talk about. So this was kind of cool to just kind of shoot the breeze. And again, if your listeners or your viewers or anybody want to go and check out the website, again, it's jaybirdtalks.com. Feel free to do the follow and all that good stuff. And then, like I said, I'll have a podcast like YouTube thing coming out soon when I can figure that thing out. And then I'm also on Twitter at jaybirdtalks. So I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. And for those of you watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. And for those of you listening, Tapped In with Tony is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and wherever streaming. So thank you guys for listening in.